I found cameras hidden in my bedroom. I'm a widow living alone. I didn't remove it. I traced the signal with my nephew's help and saw who was watching from the other end. My name is Dorothy Mae Lawson. I'm 68 years old and I live alone in a small brick house on Maplewood Drive in Memphis, Tennessee. Take a deep breath, because what I'm about to tell you is something I never imagined could happen to me. Not in my own home, not in the bedroom where I slept beside my husband for 37 years, not at this stage of my life when I thought I'd earned the right to feel safe. I am a retired school librarian, spent 31 years at Carver Elementary, helping children discover the magic hidden between book covers. My husband Earl passed away 8 years ago from a heart attack that took him from me on a Tuesday morning while he was watering the roses in our backyard. One minute he was humming an old Temptations song, the next minute he was gone. Just like that. After Earl died, everyone told me I should sell the house, move somewhere smaller, get an apartment in one of those senior living communities where there's always someone around. But this house is mine. We paid it off after 30 years of mortgage payments, scrimping and saving, never taking fancy vacations so we could put extra toward the principal. Every room holds a memory. The kitchen, where I taught my 3 children to make cornbread. The living room where Earl proposed to me on Christmas Eve in 1979. The bedroom where we whispered our fears and dreams to each other in the dark for nearly 4 decades. I wasn't leaving. I refused. So I stayed. I learned to change my own light bulbs. I figured out how to reset the circuit breaker when it tripped. I became the kind of woman who doesn't wait for a man to solve her problems. At 68, I was proud of my independence, proud of my quiet life, proud of the routine I'd built. Morning coffee on the porch, afternoon walks around the block, evening news, and bed by 9:30. That routine shattered on a Thursday night in the middle of April. I couldn't sleep. It happens sometimes when you get older. Your body gets tired, but your mind decides it wants to replay every conversation you've ever had, every mistake you've ever made. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. Listening to the house settle and creak the way old houses do, that's when I saw it. A tiny green light, blinking. It was coming from the smoke detector mounted on the ceiling above my dresser. Earl had installed that smoke detector himself 15 years ago after we had a small kitchen fire. I'd looked at that smoke detector 1,000 times, changed the batteries twice a year just like the fire department recommends. Never once had I seen a blinking green light. At first I told myself I was imagining things, old age playing tricks on my eyes. Maybe it was always there, and I just never noticed it in the dark. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but something wouldn't let me rest. A feeling deep in my gut. The same feeling I used to get when one of my students was being hurt at home and trying to hide it. The feeling that something was very, very wrong. I got out of bed. My bones protested the way they always do at 2 a.m. I shuffled to the closet and pulled out the step stool Earl kept for changing the ceiling fan bulbs. I positioned it under the smoke detector, climbed up carefully and looked closer. The green light blinked again, steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I reached up and touched the smoke detector. It felt normal, plastic casing, round shape, the little test button on the side. But there was something else, a tiny hole I'd never noticed before, no bigger than the head of a pin. I squinted at it, leaning closer until my nose was almost touching the ceiling, and that's when I saw it. Behind that tiny hole was a lens, a camera lens, pointed directly at my bed. If you are watching this story and it's touching your heart already, please take a moment to hit the like button. Subscribe to Black Lady Tales so you don't miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I want to know which corner of the world is listening to an old woman's story tonight. My hands started shaking so badly I almost fell off the step stool. I climbed down and sat on the edge of my bed, trying to catch my breath. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. A camera. Someone had put a camera in my bedroom. I thought about all the private moments that had happened in this room. Getting dressed in the morning, getting undressed at night. talking to myself the way people do when they live alone, crying on the anniversary of Earl's death, praying on my knees beside the bed. All of it. Recorded. Watched by someone I couldn't see. The violation was so complete, so total that I couldn't process it at first. I just sat there, frozen, feeling like the walls of my own home had betrayed me. My first instinct was to rip that smoke detector off the ceiling and smash it into 100 pieces, destroy the evidence of my humiliation, pretend I never saw it. But then something else took over, something harder and colder than fear, anger. Whoever did this to me thought I was an easy target. They thought I was just a lonely old widow who wouldn't notice, who wouldn't fight back, who would just continue living my life while they watched me like some kind of entertainment. They were wrong. I didn't touch that smoke detector. I didn't remove the camera. Instead, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out who put it there. I was going to look them in the eye and ask them why, and then I was going to make sure they faced consequences for what they did to me. That night, I slept in my living room with every light on in the house, not because I was scared, because I was planning. Whoever put that camera in my bedroom made one mistake. They underestimated a 68-year-old black woman who raised 3 children, buried a husband, and survived everything life threw at her. They thought I was just a lonely old lady. They were about to find out how wrong they were. I didn't sleep more than 20 minutes that entire night. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow looked like a threat. By 4:30 in the morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed help, real help. The kind that came with expertise I didn't have. I picked up my phone and called my nephew Marcus. Marcus is my sister Evelyn's youngest boy. 34 years old, works as an IT security specialist for a big company downtown. Ever since Earl passed, Marcus has been my unofficial tech support. He's the one who set up my Wi-Fi. He taught me how to use my smartphone. He fixed my laptop when I accidentally downloaded something I shouldn't have from a website I thought was the real Amazon. If anyone could figure out how that camera got in my ceiling and who put it there, it was Marcus. The phone rang 4 times before he answered, his voice thick with sleep. "Auntie Dorothy? It's 4:47 in the morning. Everything okay?" "No, baby," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Everything is not okay. I need you to come over here, right now." I heard him shifting, sitting up in bed. "What's wrong? Are you hurt? Did you fall?" "I'm not hurt, but something happened and I need your help. Please, Marcus, just come." There was a pause. When he spoke again, his voice was alert, all traces of sleep gone. "I'm on my way, Auntie. Give me an hour. Stay put and don't answer the door for anyone." He made it in 53 minutes. I know because I was counting every second from my living room chair, watching the street through the curtain like a woman afraid of her own home. When I opened the door, Marcus was carrying a laptop bag over one shoulder and some kind of electronic device I didn't recognize in his hand. He was dressed in sweatpants and a wrinkled t-shirt, his eyes sharp and worried. "Auntie, what happened? You sounded scared on the phone." I led him into the living room and sat him down on the couch. Then I told him everything. The sleepless night, the blinking green light, the camera lens hidden behind that tiny hole in the smoke detector. I watched his face change as I spoke. The concern shifted to confusion, then to something darker, something that looked a lot like rage. "Show me," he said. We went to the bedroom. Marcus climbed the step stool I'd left in place and examined the smoke detector for a long time, not touching it, just looking. When he climbed down, his expression was grim. "Auntie, that's definitely a camera, a wireless one, probably transmitting to a receiver somewhere. These things are everywhere now. You can buy them online for $40. He looked around the room slowly, his eyes scanning every surface, every fixture. The question is, where else did they put them? That question hadn't even occurred to me. Where else? For the next 2 hours, Marcus searched my entire house with that electronic device. which he explained was a signal detector. It could pick up the radio frequencies that wireless cameras use to transmit their feed. He checked every room, every vent, every outlet, every smoke detector. He found the second camera in my bathroom. It was hidden inside the vent cover above my shower. Same kind of tiny lens, same blinking light positioned to capture everything. My bath, my morning routine. Moments so private I couldn't even look at Marcus after he showed me. I had to sit down. My legs simply wouldn't hold me anymore. "This isn't random," Marcus said, kneeling in front of me in my living room. "Someone planned this. They had access to your house long enough to install these in 2 different places. They knew where to hide them so you wouldn't notice. Can you find out who?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Marcus nodded slowly. "I can try. These cameras are transmitting to something, a computer, a phone, a recording device. If it's local, I might be able to trace the signal back to its source." He set up his laptop on my kitchen table and started doing things I didn't understand. Typing commands into black screens with green text, clicking through menus and charts. After about 30 minutes, he leaned back and rubbed his eyes. "Okay, so both cameras are connected to a Wi-Fi network, not your home network, a separate one." "A separate network? In my house?" "Someone set up their own network specifically for these cameras. It's hidden, so it wouldn't show up if you just looked at available Wi-Fi on your phone." He clicked something and turned the laptop to face me. "And Auntie, look at what they named it." On the screen was a list of networks. One of them was highlighted. Dorothy Watch. My own name. They had named their surveillance network after me. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the kitchen table so hard my knuckles went white. "This is personal," Marcus said quietly. "Whoever did this knows you. They're not just watching random houses. They targeted you specifically. Can you find them? Can you see where the signal goes?" Marcus worked for another hour, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Finally, he sat back with a frustrated sigh. "The signal is going to an IP address about 2 miles from here. I can get the general area, but not the exact location. It looks like an apartment complex on Madison Avenue." Madison Avenue. Something cold twisted in my stomach. "We should call the police," Marcus said, already reaching for his phone. "No." The word came out before I could stop it. "Not yet." Marcus stared at me. "Auntie, this is serious. This is illegal. I know what someone is doing." I cut him off, my voice harder than I intended. "But if we call the police now, before we know who, they might cover their tracks. They might deny everything. They might walk away free while I spend the rest of my life wondering which one of my own people violated me like this." "You think it's someone you know?" I closed my eyes. The apartment complex on Madison Avenue, 2 miles away. I knew someone who lived there. Someone who had been in my house recently. Someone who had access to exactly the places where those cameras were hidden. "Marcus, I need you to help me think through everyone who's been in this house in the last 6 months. Everyone." Marcus looked at me with those serious eyes, so much like his mother's. "Auntie, whoever did this knows your name, knows your house, knows your routine." He paused. "We need to figure out who's had access to this house in the last few months. Everyone." I closed my eyes and started counting. The plumber who fixed the kitchen sink in January, my neighbor's son who helped move furniture in February, my daughter Cheryl who visited in March, my church friend Beatrice who waters my plants when I travel, and then there was someone else, someone I didn't want to think about, but I had to. We moved back to the kitchen table. Marcus cleared away his laptop and pulled a stack of index cards from his bag. "Old school," he said. "Sometimes writing things down helps you think." So that's what we did. 1 name per card. Everyone who had been inside my house since November. I spoke the names out loud while Marcus wrote them down. By the time we finished, there were 7 cards spread across my kitchen table, like a hand of the worst poker game I'd ever played. "Okay," Marcus said, picking up the first card. "Let's go through these, one by one. Tell me everything you remember about each person's visit." The first name was Tony DeLuca. He was the plumber who came in January when my kitchen sink started leaking. He was only here once, I said, remembering. Maybe 2 hours total. I watched him the entire time because I wanted to make sure he wasn't overcharging me. He never went anywhere except the kitchen, didn't even use my bathroom. Marcus set the card aside. Probably not him. Limited access, no motive, no return visits. The second name was Jerome, my neighbor Patricia's son. He was 22 years old and had helped me move some heavy furniture in February when I decided to rearrange my living room. Jerome's a good kid, I said. Patricia raised him right. He was here for about an hour, helped me move the couch and the bookshelf. I gave him $20 and some lemonade. I shook my head. He didn't go upstairs at all, never went near the bedroom or bathroom. Another card set aside. The third name was harder. Cheryl, my own daughter. Marcus hesitated before writing it down. He knew the history. Everyone in our family did. Cheryl and I have what you might call a complicated relationship. She's my middle child, always felt overlooked between her older brother and younger sister. When Earl died, things got worse. She thought she should have gotten more from his estate, thought the house should have been split between all the children instead of left entirely to me. There were words exchanged, sharp ones, words that can't be taken back. She came to visit in March. It was supposed to be a reconciliation, 3 days of trying to mend fences that had been broken for years. She has a key to my house, always has. I never thought to take it back, even after our falling out. Cheryl had access to everything, I admitted, the words like gravel in my throat. She was here for 3 days. Could have gone anywhere in the house while I was sleeping or shopping. Marcus didn't say anything. He just wrote a question mark on her card. The fourth name was Beatrice Johnson, my dear friend from church. We've known each other for 32 years. She waters my plants whenever I go to visit my son in Atlanta, has a spare key for emergencies. Beatrice is 71 years old, I said firmly. She can barely work her television remote. She's not installing hidden cameras anywhere. Marcus nodded and set her card in the unlikely pile. The fifth name was a young woman from the pharmacy who delivered my prescriptions twice. The sixth was the cable technician who came to fix my television reception. Neither had been upstairs. Neither had unsupervised access. Neither had any reason to target me specifically. And then there was the seventh card, the one I'd been avoiding. Marcus picked it up and read the name out loud. Gerald Thompson, Uncle Earl's nephew? I nodded slowly. My throat felt tight. Gerald was Earl's sister, Lorraine's only son. He was family, but he was also trouble. Had been since he was a teenager. Drugs, petty theft, broken promises to everyone who ever tried to help him. He stole money from his own mother to feed his habit. Stole from Earl and me too, back in the 90s. A whole $500 from the envelope I kept in my dresser drawer. After that, Earl cut ties with him. Said he loved his nephew but couldn't enable him anymore. Gerald disappeared from our lives for almost 20 years. I heard pieces over the years. Jail time, rehab, more jail time. His mother Lorraine passed away in 2017 without ever seeing her son get clean. Then, 6 months ago, Gerald showed up at my door. He looked different, cleaner, clear-eyed. He told me he'd finally gotten sober. 3 years clean, had a sponsor and everything. He said he wanted to make amends, wanted to reconnect with the family he'd hurt, asked if I could find it in my heart to forgive him. And I did. Lord help me, I did. Because that's what Earl would have wanted, because family is supposed to mean something, because I wanted to believe that people could change. Gerald started coming around regularly after that. He'd help with small repairs around the house, change light bulbs I couldn't reach, take out the trash on garbage day. He even offered to check my smoke detectors and change the batteries. The smoke detectors. I felt sick. The room tilted. Marcus grabbed my arm to steady me. "Auntie, what is it?" Gerald changed the batteries in my smoke detectors, I whispered. 3 months ago. He insisted, said it was important for safety. Marcus's face went pale. Did he touch the one in your bedroom? Yes. What about the bathroom vent? Did he have any reason to go up there? I thought back, tried to remember, and then it hit me. The exhaust fan, I said slowly. The bathroom exhaust fan was making a squeaking noise. Gerald offered to clean the vent cover, said dust builds up and makes them noisy. The bathroom vent, where the second camera was hidden. Marcus was already typing on his laptop. The apartment complex on Madison Avenue, he muttered. The one where the signal leads. He pulled up something on the screen, then looked at me with an expression I'll never forget. Auntie, what's the name of the complex where Gerald lives? I didn't have to think. Gerald had mentioned it proudly when he moved in, said it was the first real apartment he'd had in years. Madison Court Apartments, I said. Marcus turned the laptop to face me. On the screen was a map with a red dot showing where the camera signals were going. The dot was sitting right on top of Madison Court Apartments. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. The evidence was right there. Gerald had access to both locations where the cameras were hidden. Gerald had been alone with those smoke detectors and that bathroom vent. Gerald lived exactly where the camera feed was going. Gerald had shown up in my life 6 months ago, right after Earl's life insurance payout finally cleared. I'd received a check for $250,000. I'd mentioned it to Gerald, not thinking anything of it. Just family talk. I thought about Gerald's face when he'd come over these past months, the way he'd look around the house, asking about what I planned to do with Earl's things, the way he'd comment on how big this house is for one person, the way he'd ask, so casually, if I'd ever thought about moving into a smaller place, maybe one of those senior communities. I thought I was talking to family. I thought he was finally trying to make up for lost time. But now I understood. Gerald wasn't reconnecting with me. He was casing me, and I was going to find out exactly what he wanted and who he was working with. Marcus wanted to call the police right then and there. I could see it in his eyes, the way his hand kept drifting toward his phone like it had a mind of its own. He was scared for me. I understood that, but I wasn't ready. Auntie, we have enough, he said, pacing my kitchen floor. We know the cameras are transmitting to his apartment complex. We know he had access to install them. That's probable cause. The police can take it from here. And what happens when they show up at Gerald's door? I asked, my voice steady even though my insides were churning. He denies everything. Says he never touched those smoke detectors. Says someone else must have done it. It becomes my word against his, and those cameras disappear before anyone can prove anything. That's not how it works. There's digital evidence. IP addresses. Marcus. I held up my hand. I spent 31 years watching children lie to me about who started fights on the playground, who stole whose lunch money, who wrote what on the bathroom walls. I know how people behave when they're cornered. Gerald has been running from consequences his whole life. He knows how to slip away. If we're going to do this, we need to catch him in the act. We need him to show his hand. Marcus stopped pacing. He looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the conflict playing out across his face. He didn't want to put me in danger, but he also knew I was right. What exactly are you thinking? He asked finally. I told him my plan. It was simple, really. If Gerald was watching those cameras, he was watching for a reason. He wanted something. Money, most likely. Maybe information about where I kept my valuables, so I would give him exactly what he was looking for. I would stage a conversation in my bedroom, mention a safe I didn't actually have, talk about emergency cash and jewelry hidden somewhere in the house. If Gerald was really watching, he wouldn't be able to resist coming back to find it. Marcus shook his head slowly. That's dangerous. What if he doesn't come alone? What if he comes in the middle of the night? Then we'll know what kind of man he really is. It took Marcus another hour to come around, but eventually he agreed to help on one condition. He had a friend named Terrence who worked for the Memphis Police Department. Not a detective, but a patrol officer who knew how things worked. Marcus wanted to bring Terrence in, off the record, just in case things went sideways. I agreed. Having a police officer on standby seemed prudent. Even this old woman knows when to accept backup. The next morning, Marcus returned with his laptop and a new determination. He spent several hours doing something complicated with the Wi-Fi signals, explaining it in terms I didn't fully understand. Something about intercepting packets and monitoring traffic. What mattered was the result. He could now see when someone was actively viewing the camera feeds. "Right now, nothing," he said, pointing to a graph on his screen. "The cameras are transmitting, but no one is watching. If someone logs in to view the feed, I'll know." We waited until evening. I figured Gerald or whoever was on the other end would be more likely to watch at night when they assumed I'd be home and vulnerable. At 7:30, I went to my bedroom. I left the door open, positioned myself near the dresser where the smoke detector camera had a clear view, and called Marcus's phone. He answered from the kitchen, playing the role of an old friend named Barbara. "Barbara, honey, I'm so glad you called," I said, pitching my voice higher than normal, friendly, unsuspecting. "You know, I've been thinking about what you said, about keeping valuables at home instead of the bank." I glanced at the smoke detector. That tiny green light was still blinking. "Well, I finally did it. I bought one of those fireproof safes. You know, the ones you can hide in a closet. I've got it set up now with my emergency cash, about $5,000, plus all my good jewelry, the pieces Earl gave me over the years." From the kitchen, Marcus gave me a thumbs up through the doorway. I continued. "It's hidden in the back of my bedroom closet behind the winter coats. Nobody would ever think to look there. I feel so much safer now knowing it's protected." I chatted with Barbara for another few minutes, adding details about my daily routine, mentioning when I usually left for grocery shopping, when I went to bed, all the information a thief would need. When I hung up, I walked to the kitchen on shaky legs. Marcus was staring at his laptop screen with an expression I couldn't read. "Well?" He turned the laptop toward me. The graph that had been flat before now showed a sharp spike. "Someone started watching 30 seconds after you walked into the bedroom," he said quietly. "They watched the entire conversation, every word." I sat down heavily in a kitchen chair. Part of me had still hoped I was wrong. Hoped there was some other explanation, but now I knew. Someone was watching, someone was listening, and they had taken the bait. "Now we wait," I said. The waiting was the hardest part. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. I kept thinking about Gerald, wondering if I'd misjudged him. Maybe it wasn't him at all. Maybe someone else had access to those cameras. Maybe the IP address was a coincidence. Then, on the third day, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number at first, but when I answered, I knew the voice immediately. "Aunt Dorothy, it's Gerald." My heart started pounding. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to stay calm. "Gerald, it's been a while since you called." I know. I've been busy. You know how it is. But I was thinking about you, wanted to check in, see how you're doing." "I'm doing fine. Just the same old routine." Good. He paused. "Hey, listen, I was thinking. It's been a few months since I checked those smoke detectors for you. The batteries might be getting low. Mind if I swing by tomorrow, take a look?" "The smoke detectors, of course." "That's so thoughtful of you, Gerald. Tomorrow works just fine. How about around 2 in the afternoon?" "Perfect. I'll see you then, Aunt Dorothy. Take care of yourself." He hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand for a long time. That evening, Marcus came over with Terrence. Terrence was a large man with kind eyes and a calm demeanor. He listened to our entire story without interrupting, then nodded slowly. "Officially, I can't do anything without a formal complaint and investigation," he said. "But unofficially, I can be here tomorrow, out of sight. If this Gerald character tries anything, I'll be ready." We made our plan. Marcus would wait in the basement with his laptop, monitoring everything. Terrence would park down the street and enter through the back door once Gerald was inside. I would lead Gerald to the bedroom, confront him, and give Terrence time to move into position. "Are you sure about this, Auntie?" Marcus asked after Terrence left. "It's not too late to just hand everything over to the police and let them handle it." I shook my head. I need to look him in the eye. I need to hear him admit what he did and why. I need to understand how someone I welcomed into my home could do this to me. Marcus didn't argue anymore. He just hugged me tight and promised to be there first thing in the morning. The night before Gerald was supposed to come, I sat in my living room with the lights off. Marcus had gone home to prepare, but he'd be back in the morning with Terrence. Everything was ready. But I wasn't thinking about the plan. I was thinking about Gerald as a little boy, running around at family cookouts, Earl lifting him onto his shoulders. I was thinking about the last time I saw Gerald's mother, Earl's sister Lorraine, before she passed. Her hands had been so thin, her eyes so tired. She had grabbed my wrist and made me promise to look out for her son if he ever got himself straightened out. I had promised. I had tried. Lord knows I had tried. And this is what it came to. I wiped my eyes and straightened my back. "I'm sorry, Lorraine," I whispered into the dark, "but I have to protect myself now." Gerald arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. I watched him pull into my driveway from behind the living room curtain, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. He was driving a beat-up Honda Civic that I didn't recognize. When he stepped out, he was wearing clean jeans and a button-down shirt, looking like a respectable nephew coming to help his elderly aunt. The mask was perfect. If I didn't know what I knew, I would have seen exactly what he wanted me to see. I opened the door before he could knock. "Gerald, right on time. Come on in." He smiled that easy smile of his, the one that used to charm everyone at family gatherings before things went wrong. "Aunt Dorothy, you're looking good. This house is looking good too. You've been taking care of the place." "I do my best." In the basement, I knew Marcus was watching his laptop, making sure everything was being recorded. Down the street, Terrence was waiting for my signal, a text message with a single word: "Now." I led Gerald through the living room, making small talk about the weather, about his apartment, about his recovery meetings. He answered everything smoothly, asking about my health, my church friends, whether I'd been sleeping well. The irony of that last question nearly made me laugh out loud. He knew exactly how I'd been sleeping. He'd been watching. "The smoke detectors are this way," I said, gesturing toward the hallway. "The one in the bedroom has been making a little beeping sound. Maybe the battery is getting low." "Lead the way, Aunt Dorothy." We walked down the hall together. Each step felt like walking toward something I couldn't come back from. The bedroom door was open. The smoke detector hung innocently on the ceiling, that tiny green light still blinking away. Gerald stepped into the room, already looking up at the ceiling with practiced concern. "Let me grab my step stool from the car and I'll—" "You don't need a step stool." Something in my voice made him freeze. He turned to look at me, and for just a second, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Wariness. Calculation. "What do you mean?" I stepped fully into the bedroom and closed the door behind me. Not all the way, just enough to make a point. "I know about the cameras, Gerald." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Gerald's face went through 3 expressions in rapid succession: confusion, denial, and then something harder, something cold. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The camera in the smoke detector. The one in the bathroom vent. I found them. I traced the signal. I know it goes to your apartment building on Madison Avenue." Gerald's mask cracked, just slightly at the corners. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "Aunt Dorothy, you're confused. I think maybe you should sit down." "Don't." The word came out sharp enough to cut glass. "Don't you dare tell me I'm confused. Don't you dare try to make me feel crazy. I spent my whole career dealing with liars, Gerald. Children who thought they could fool me. They couldn't, and neither can you." For a moment, we just stared at each other. Aunt and nephew, family, strangers. Then Gerald laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. "You know what, Aunt Dorothy? You always did think you were so smart, you and Uncle Earl both, looking down on everyone else, acting like you were better than the rest of us. I never. Yes, you did. His voice was rising now. The charm had vanished completely. You and Earl in your nice little house, with your nice little savings, your nice little retirement, while the rest of us struggled, while my mama worked herself to death, while I was out there trying to survive. So this is about money. Gerald spread his hands. What else would it be about? You're sitting on a gold mine here, Aunt Dorothy. This house alone is worth $300,000, plus Earl's life insurance, plus whatever else you've got squirreled away. And who's going to get it when you're gone? Your precious children who barely visit. Marcus, who only comes around when you need tech support. You were watching me to find out where I keep my money. I was watching you to figure out the best way to get what I deserve. The confession hung in the air between us. I felt sick, but I needed to know everything. And what was the plan, Gerald? Rob me? Kill me? He had the decency to look offended. Kill you? I'm not a murderer, Aunt Dorothy. The plan was simpler than that. Wait until you mentioned where you keep your valuables, which you finally did, thank you for that, then clean you out while you were at church or shopping. After that, well, you're 68 years old and living alone. It wouldn't be hard to convince a judge that you're not mentally fit to manage your own affairs, get power of attorney, sell the house, access your accounts. Forge documents, you mean. Commit fraud. He shrugged. Call it what you want. And who else is involved? The question caught him off guard. I saw it in the way his eyes flickered. What? You said the plan, not my plan. You said you were waiting for me to mention something useful. That's not how someone talks about their own idea. Someone else put you up to this. Someone else is pulling the strings. Gerald's face went blank. I don't know what you're... Who else, Gerald? Who's your partner? He stared at me, and then he smiled. That cold, bitter smile that had replaced all his charm. You really don't know, do you? Know what? Before he could answer, the bedroom door swung open. Terrence stood there in uniform, his hand resting on his belt. Behind him, Marcus appeared from the hallway. Gerald Thompson, Terrence said in a calm, official voice. You're under arrest for unlawful surveillance, invasion of privacy, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Gerald's eyes went wide. For a moment, I thought he might run, but then his shoulders slumped and he turned around, letting Terrence cuff his wrists. As Terrence read him his rights, Marcus came to stand beside me. You okay, Auntie? I nodded, even though I wasn't sure if it was true. Terrence led Gerald toward the front door, but as they passed me, Gerald stopped, looked me right in the eye, and laughed. You don't even know the half of it, Auntie. What's that supposed to mean? Ask yourself who gave me your phone number. Ask yourself who told me about the life insurance money. Ask yourself who has a key to this house and a grudge the size of Tennessee. Terrence pulled him forward before I could respond. I stood frozen in the hallway, Gerald's words echoing in my head. Through the window, I watched Terrence put Gerald in the back of his patrol car. The neighbors were starting to come out onto their porches, watching the commotion. Tomorrow, everyone on Maplewood Drive would know something had happened at Dorothy Lawson's house. But I didn't care about the neighbors right now. I was thinking about what Gerald had said, who gave him my phone number, who told him about the insurance money, who has a key and a grudge. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message from an unknown number. I pulled it out with trembling hands. 3 words glowed on the screen. Smart move, Mom. As the police car pulled away with Gerald in the back seat, I stood on my porch trying to process what had just happened. I should have felt relieved. I should have felt safe. But Gerald's words echoed in my head. This wasn't even my idea. Someone had put him up to this. Someone had planned this whole thing. I looked at that message for a long time. Then I looked at Marcus. We need to call your cousin Cheryl. Marcus's face went pale when I showed him the text message. He read it 3 times as if hoping the words might change if he stared hard enough. Cheryl? His voice cracked. "Your daughter, Cheryl, my cousin." I didn't answer. I was already dialing her number. It rang 4 times before she picked up. When she did, her voice was exactly the way I remembered it from her last visit. Sweet on the surface, with something sharp underneath. "Mom, what a surprise. You usually don't call this late." "Don't play games with me, Cheryl." Silence on the other end. "Gerald just got arrested," I continued. "He told me everything, about the cameras, about the plan to rob me, about forging documents to take my house. And he told me he had a partner, someone who gave him my phone number, someone who told him about your father's life insurance, someone who has a key to my house." More silence, longer this time. "Then I got a text message," I said, "from an unknown number, 3 words. Smart move, Mom. So let me ask you directly, Cheryl, was it you?" I heard her breathing, slow, deliberate. "You always were smarter than you looked," Cheryl finally said. Her voice had changed. The sweetness was gone. What remained was cold and flat. "I told Gerald you wouldn't be easy, but he insisted you were just a senile old woman who wouldn't notice a thing." My legs gave out. I sank onto the couch, phone pressed to my ear, the world tilting sideways. "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "I'm your mother. Why would you do this to me?" Cheryl laughed. The sound was so ugly it made me flinch. "Why? You really have to ask? Daddy left everything to you, everything. The house, the insurance money, the savings accounts, 37 years of marriage, and he left it all to his precious Dorothy. What did I get? What did any of us kids get?" "Your father left money to all 3 of you, $50,000 each." $50,000, she spat the words, "while you got the house worth 3 times that, while you got the insurance payout, while you sat in that house collecting Daddy's pension, telling everyone how hard it was to be a widow. Cheryl, your father wanted to make sure I was taken care of. He knew I'd never worked outside the home. He knew you had him wrapped around your finger. That's what he knew." Her voice rose. "I watched you manipulate him my whole life, playing the perfect wife, the perfect mother, making the rest of us look bad. And then when he died, you got everything, and I got nothing that mattered." I closed my eyes. The pain in my chest was so sharp I wondered if I was having a heart attack. "So you found Gerald. You convinced him to spy on me." "He was easy. Gerald always was easy. All I had to do was tell him about the money you were sitting on, promise him half of whatever we could get. The original plan was just to find hidden assets, something we could use to challenge the will, prove Daddy wasn't in his right mind when he wrote it. But you didn't have anything hidden. You really are as boring as you seem." So the plan changed. Gerald's idea. He said if you mentioned where you kept your cash, he could clean you out. Then we'd work on the power of attorney angle. You're 68, living alone, no husband. It wouldn't be hard to convince a judge you needed someone to manage your affairs. And that someone would be you. I'm your daughter. Who else would it be? The betrayal was so complete, so total that I couldn't find words. My own child. The girl I'd rocked to sleep, nursed through fevers, helped with homework. The teenager I'd driven to dance lessons and first dates. The young woman I'd watched walk across the stage at her college graduation. All those years of love, and this is what it amounted to. "Cheryl," I said slowly, "the police have Gerald. He's going to tell them everything. About you, about the plan, about all of it." A pause. When Cheryl spoke again, there was fear beneath the defiance. "Gerald won't talk. He knows what happens to snitches." Gerald already talked. To me, in my bedroom, with a police officer listening from the hallway. I took a breath, and I recorded the whole thing. The silence on the other end stretched for an eternity. "You're lying." "I'm not. My nephew Marcus helped me set it up. The same nephew who traced those cameras back to Gerald's apartment. The same nephew who's sitting next to me right now, listening to every word you're saying." I heard Cheryl's breathing change, faster now, panicked. This conversation is being recorded too, Cheryl. Everything you just confessed to, conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse, all of it. You can't do this. I'm your daughter. You stopped being my daughter when you decided to treat me like a target instead of a mother." The line went dead. Cheryl had hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at nothing. Marcus was beside me, his hand on my shoulder, but I barely felt it. "I'll call Terrence," he said quietly. "They'll need to pick her up too." I nodded. It was all I could manage. The next few weeks passed in a blur of police interviews, legal consultations, and sleepless nights. Cheryl was arrested at her apartment 2 days after our phone conversation. She didn't go quietly. She screamed about her rights, about entrapment, about what an awful mother I'd always been. The neighbors on her street came out to watch, just like mine had. Gerald pleaded guilty to multiple charges and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. Cheryl fought the charges initially, but faced with the recordings and Gerald's testimony, she eventually pleaded guilty to conspiracy and elder abuse. The judge gave her 3 years. My other 2 children, James and Patricia, were devastated. They flew in from Atlanta and Seattle, sitting in my living room with shock written across their faces. "We had no idea," James kept saying. "We knew Cheryl was bitter about the will, but we never thought—" "How could she do this to you, Mama?" Patricia asked through tears. "You're our mother. You gave us everything." I didn't have answers for them. I still don't. The community rallied around me in ways I didn't expect. My church family brought casseroles and prayers. Beatrice came over every day for the first month, just to sit with me. Neighbors who'd barely spoken to me before started checking in, making sure I was okay. Marcus installed a proper security system, the kind with cameras I control, alarms on every door, and a direct line to the police station. He also changed all my locks and set up a new Wi-Fi network with a password. Only I know. But the real healing took longer than any of that. I started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Williams who specializes in elder trauma. In her office, I learned words I'd never heard before: financial exploitation, familial betrayal, survivor's guilt. I learned that what happened to me wasn't my fault, even though some nights I still wonder if I could have prevented it. If I'd been a better mother, if I'd paid more attention to Cheryl's resentment, if I'd shared more of Earl's estate. Dr. Williams told me those thoughts are normal, but they're not true. Cheryl made her choices. Gerald made his choices. Their actions were about their greed and their bitterness, not about anything I did or didn't do. If you're still with me after all this, I want to thank you for listening. This story isn't easy to tell, and I imagine it wasn't easy to hear, but I'm telling it because I believe it matters. Take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to Black Lady Tales if this story touched you, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I want to know how far this old woman's words can travel. 6 months have passed now since Gerald was arrested on my front porch. The cameras are gone from my smoke detectors and bathroom vents. The constant fear of being watched has faded, though I still sometimes catch myself glancing at the ceiling. Cheryl wrote me a letter from prison. I haven't opened it yet. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. Forgiveness is a journey, Dr. Williams tells me. There's no timeline for it. What I have done is reconnect with the family members who showed up when it mattered. James and Patricia call me every Sunday now. Marcus still comes by for dinner once a week. My grandchildren send me drawings and videos that make me smile. I am surrounded by people who love me genuinely, not for what they can take from me. I've also started volunteering with a local organization that helps elderly people recognize signs of exploitation. We visit senior centers and churches, teaching people what to look out for. The questions to ask when a family member suddenly reappears after years of silence. The warning signs when someone takes too much interest in your finances. The importance of trusting your gut when something feels wrong, because that's what saved me in the end. My gut. That feeling in the middle of the night when I saw that blinking green light and knew deep down that it didn't belong there. If I had ignored it, if I had convinced myself I was being paranoid, Gerald would have cleaned me out. Cheryl would have taken my house. and I would have spent my final years confused, impoverished, and wondering what happened. Instead, I'm here. In my home. The home Earl and I paid off together. The home where I raised my children and buried my husband and built a life worth protecting. If you're watching this and you're living alone, whether you're 68 like me or 28, please hear me. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Check those smoke detectors. Look at those air vents. Pay attention to who's asking questions about your life, your money, your plans. And if the betrayal comes from someone you love, know this: their betrayal is about them, not about you. You did nothing wrong by loving them. You did nothing wrong by trusting them. The wrong is theirs to carry, not yours. I'm Dorothy Mae Lawson. I'm 68 years old. I've been a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a teacher, and a survivor. And if this old woman can catch the people trying to hurt her, investigate like a detective, and come out the other side still standing, so can you. Thank you for listening to my story. This is Black Lady Tales, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.